I think this is beautiful. And I use this with them the first day. But he basically says, you want to be world champion, you have to be world caliber in at least 2 of the following 3 categories. You don't have to have all 3, but you have to be at least world caliber. And again, world caliber is relative to the other people.
Yeah.
So you have to be in the top 10 in your sport in these 2 categories. Right? They're all world caliber compared to you and I. Or they're world caliber compared to the other 10. That's the metric. So he says, mixed martial artists are either fighters, competitors, or athletes. A fighter is somebody, and you could even come up with examples of individuals here because it kind of makes it easier. But fighters generally like fighting. They'd fight 50 times, 100 times. They don't care. They tend to not really mind losing that much because they just love fighting. They take short notice fights. They don't care. Up a weight class, sure. Like these things aren't that big a deal to them. They tend to not mind getting punched in the face as much. They tend to outshoot their actual conditioning, which is really important. So they will do far better with their conditioning because they don't care as much about being in the fight. It's not such a big deal to them because they've done it 1,000 times, but they just feel like they could do it 1,000 times. Yeah. And so they overperform their conditioning in the fights. They tend to pay less attention to detail. Their preparation is usually awful scientifically, right? Because they just want to show up and fight. The fighter or the competitor is someone who hates losing at anything. Like I said, fighters, they don't really care about losing. I'll just stop. Give me an example of someone in the UFC who's a fighter. Who pops in your head okay, clearly, right?
Yeah.
Record of 20-15 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
They don't fight to win fights. They fight to beat you up, right? So they always lose on points. They're high finish rates, and they think they want to fight if your face is more messed up.
Yeah.
And in their mind, they did. Like that's the metric. That's the ultimate metric. They're not there. They're not point fighters. All this stuff, right? So if you look at someone like a Diaz, whichever one you pick, you can actually predict where they're going to struggle and where they could succeed. And so then your training, your assessment, in my opinion, should take care of those. Let's make sure we train them appropriately for their strengths, but also then prepare them for their weaknesses. You know how Nate Diaz is going to lose every fight. You know how Nick Diaz lost every fight. You know this going in. So you better address those issues. You know what they're going to be able to handle. And I can come back and I can give you specific examples of that if you want. But moving on to the competitor, a competitor doesn't want to lose anything. So a competitor will do whatever it takes in the round to win the round because they don't want to lose a single exchange. They don't want to have one misstep, right? They want their technique to be perfect every single time, and they get infuriated when they're not perfect, right? They're not necessarily fighters. That could be there or not, but fighting to them is just a way that they can compete with really high stakes, and it's very, very different. Think of George St. Pierre.
Okay.
And by his own admission, he's not a true fighter, right? It's not natural to him. He doesn't like getting hit in the face. Right. Nobody does, but some people like Robbie Lawler, it doesn't really affect him that much.
Right.
It doesn't throw him off mentally at all. He can have the gas tank to go 5 rounds when he's out of gas in the second. Right. St. Pierre is the opposite. St. Pierre doesn't want to lose an exchange. He doesn't want to be on top. Will change his entire fighting style. Will change everything about how he trains so that he doesn't get caught. A la Matt Serra, right? Robbie Lawler's not doing that. Robbie Lawler's going, I got caught. I'm just going to knock the next guy out. St. Pierre is head explodes losing, right? So a little bit different. And then the third one is an athlete. So same thing. They're not natural fighters. They're not as obsessed with losing, but they're just insanely athletic. You could certainly put George in that category. Right. Absolute insane athlete. Brock Lesnar.
Right. Okay.
Super athlete, right? And a fighter, no chance. But he's so athletic, he can walk in with one career fight and almost beat Frank Mir. And then 2 career fights beat him, right? He's fighting for world championship in 4 fights with no skills, really. Just he's a mega athlete.